Exciting news for the tech sector in India. This story a lot of people sent to me on Twitter. Wall Street Journal backs report of Apple making the iPhone XR in India. So I got this image tweeted at me a number of times, probably from Indian fans, showing the backside of an iPhone XR white 128 GB. And on there it says designed by Apple in California, assembled in India. And so people were really excited about this. Here's a device, a pretty current, relatively current device, not an iPhone 6, not an iPhone 10, an iPhone XR. So last year's device assembled in India. Now, we've covered this topic on the show here pretty extensively. There's been incentives pushed forward by the leadership in India to bring high-tech manufacturing to that region. A number of different incentives. The first one was the ability to skip over certain tariffs and taxes associated with completely importing a finished product to India and not doing some portion of the assembly in India. And then that cost would get pushed onto the customers, and therefore it would elevate the prices for certain products in the region. And so customers would stay away from them, even though that money would just fly straight to the government. So you would try to encourage those brands to come do business in India, hire Indians, and build up that industry essentially through these factories. Of course, you know what happens. Good things happen, Will. All of a sudden, you got a workforce. Workforce starts spending money in the local economy. Everything gets elevated, moves up the chain. That's sort of how it goes. Here's a quote from the finance minister in India. India will be more attractive, particularly in light of what is developing between the U.S. and China. That's also why this is important right now, because it's happening alongside the friction, tension between U.S. and China. And this may act as a strong proof of concept that, hey, we can get quality assembly in places other than China or Vietnam, but also in India. And it's also important in India because India also a very big smartphone market itself domestically. Now, apparently, the big piece here is whether or not these devices have the potential to also be exported from India. So for the time being, it appears that these models are mostly destined for sale domestically within India. So Indian iPhones assembled by Indian citizens. But once you get to the next step, the next development or evolution of this is the potential to then export. Because once you start exporting, you know what happens to the volume. Right? If you deem an Indian assembled iPhone suitable for Western Europe or North America, now you're going to need to hire a lot more people.
Right. More business. To
satisfy that export. Yeah. So you're bringing a lot more money into the country. So an interesting development. It's still a Foxconn plant, to be clear. So you would assume it would be up to their standards. And as we see newer and newer Apple devices show up with this badge on the back, it's an indication that Apple is less sensitive than they may have originally have been to the idea of these devices being assembled there. And so if we see an iPhone 11 or something like this, that will be an indication that this could be a real flip. It could have a big impact on the marketplace.